Okay, I think we'll get started. Um, as I said, my name is Jeff Wilson. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at Verusen. And just a little bit about my background. Been in supply chain software for most of my career. Company solutions around bill of materials, procurement, sourcing, transportation, logistics, and most recently had spent 4 or 5 years with a company in the master data management company industry. And so very familiar with the challenge that we'll talk about today around data, duplicated data, dirty data, et cetera, as that tends to be the core of most business issues trying to do better and transform themselves in this digital age. So with that, then I'll walk through a quick agenda for us today on the call, and then I'll let Paul Noble, our CEO, introduce himself, and then we'll get started. So we'll have a few minutes to walk through a few slides to kind of set up a bit of the problem and what we're going to address today around data and specifically how there are new ways to meet the challenge here. So, data cleanse is a big topic when you start any kind of transformation project. And, we all kind of sit with how do we do this better, faster, and cheaper? And, along comes technology, and in this case, the use of AI and models and language processing to really leapfrog what traditionally, whether it's been an old EMDM approach in trying to create golden records or just data cleanse itself, the time and expense it takes to do those kind of things can be long and expensive. So how do you get your company and your team in a place of trusting data and even in a real-time form of listening to demand signals, et cetera? But it all comes back to the crux of how good is the data, how well we can trust that data. So that's really the purpose of today's call, and aligning that around materials management and inventory optimization and how AI can play a role in that and really help you accelerate and really leapfrog a lot of the methods that are being used today. So with that, so today, we'll start with a little bit of the problem setup, a little bit more in depth of that, walk you through one of our customers' use cases of how we kind of rode in parallel with how they faced this challenge and used our platform to address some of the issues we'll talk about. And then we'll kind of transition to how we help our customers get started, in a new age of not just being remote, but using remote technology in a pandemic, how we can help a company really focus on the important priorities of in materials management, certainly preserving cash, managing working capital, reducing costs, et cetera, immediately and as fast as possible. And then we'll have a few minutes left for actually showing you a few highlights in the product itself, a live demo, and some Q&A at the end. So with that, I'll let Paul Noble introduce himself, give a little background on the company, how we got started, and why we got started. Paul?
Thanks, Jeff, and thank you everyone for joining today. Always enjoy being able to take a little bit of a deeper dive, but at least introduce a new way of looking at a decades-old problem. And so we're excited to go through the steps that we take and give you the beginnings of the blueprint to solving this duplicate dilemma and really looking at data, its foundational, the way it acts as a foundation to drive business value through the byproducts like inventory optimization, where we start in procurement intelligence and really can be a driver to your digital transformation and your adoption of other Industry 4.0 technologies without causing more data problems. So I'm excited as always to be able to meet with you here remotely and look forward to the conversation.
Hey, Paul, you want to just share a minute or so on kind of the formation of what you saw and relative to the data and materials management and the gaps, some challenges there as to how the company got
Sure.
started?
Sure. So, as you all may know, we're a supply chain intelligence company. We're focused on the materials management space, which, as Jeff touched on, his experience within just regular master data or traditional master data management or master data governance tools, materials are very difficult to wrangle, so to speak. I saw that working in supply chain, spent most of my career, decade plus, in industrial distribution, and saw how it affected me as a supplier and the challenges that our customers, large asset intensive businesses, mainly manufacturing, the difficulties that their systems, processes, and data really caused them in managing this large insurance policy, as we talk indirect MRO for this use case and focus. The challenges on working capital, the challenges on scalability and trust across operations and procurement led me to start the company a few years back and really dive deeper into what we could do to try to curb and solve the problem. And so what we've developed over the last several years, and have been working with many Fortune 500 and 1,000 companies successfully over the last year and a half, is really attacking the problem differently, eliminating some of the core challenges, both from a time perspective as well as a scalability and an execution perspective. And again, it all starts with data. So we'll dive into the details here, and I look forward to it.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get started here. So with relative to what most of you probably are very familiar with day to day is relative to the data in your supply chains. There hasn't traditionally been a ton of technology adoption around the data piece. A lot of companies that we talk to are still running on Excel, and a lot of their, whether it's data cleanse or how they're feeding their analytics engines or optimization engines, are very manual and spreadsheet intensive. A lot of data sources spread out, disparate data. I think we all get that relative to business changing very quickly, which again is part of the problem here. Even MDM in its truest form in creating golden records can be, quickly out of date, so to speak, when you've got business changing and humans putting data in and all across plants and different reasons. So that can, just magnify itself into a big problem. So much so that, Gartner, others, everybody knows there's a huge impact. And one of the reasons Paul just mentioned, a huge opportunity to align a couple of very critical elements of, you've got operations and production and uptime demands of making sure you can keep production running, so that your field and ops people are certainly out there needing the insurance to have MRO in place. You've got procurement and sourcing with a different incentive, trying to reduce cost all the time. So trying to get all of that in alignment with down to true visibility of what is currently on hand and when it could be on hand is really where everybody would like it to be. And again, contributes to a really nice opportunity to get this right. And one of the reasons that Paul founded the company. So I'm going to let Paul walk you through a quick use case, and then we'll start to talk a little bit more about how we do this.
Thanks, Jeff. So as we look at the landscape of the problems that Jeff just laid out, we're looking at kind of an architecture that has grown through several different methods, whether organically or through M&A. Usually you're working on average anywhere from 5 to 10, 15 or more catalogs of data. And that system disparity, the processes that are put on top of it to try to manage it as frequently as possible, which is typically infrequently, really leads to a lot of the byproducts as we talk about, which are inventory optimization and really having a grasp on procurement intelligence. So this case study, I know many of the attendees and registrants were CPG companies. You don't necessarily have to have several different systems that have come through acquisition. Really, whether it's all one system like SAP or Oracle, or several systems that have been pieced together. Really, as you think about this foundationally, it's the ability to take demonstrably different data sets and find synergies for them. So as we looked at this organization that had 120 plus plants, 7 different ERP systems or instances, and a couple different EAM systems that they managed their MRO parts out of, you can just imagine the dirty data that they were working off of. So as we look at any organization, is when we've created not only the product, but the blueprint to innovate long-term, you're looking at the challenge of why am I trying to, what is traditionally done, cleanse my data to then categorize things more effectively and create rules and boxes around governing and controlling that so that I can do business, I can drive business outcomes. MRO, as we know, inventory in general is an insurance policy. And you see on the previous slide, hundreds of millions of dollars are held really by each company as kind of a subjective feeling of trust, and that will keep them hitting service and Sigma levels. And as we look at the opportunity to drive efficiency, we are essentially looking across those data sets and eliminating the traditional path of cleanse, categorize, see what comes out of that, which can be 1 to 2 years. We're condensing that multiple year process, typically several different solutions or projects that make this as we talk scalability, the issue. And that's really solely the reason we use AI is speed, scale, accuracy, and knowledge transfer. And so this specific company, we looked across their 2 EAM systems to start. And within a short period of time, 45 days, we're able to take these without data cleansing at all, understand the data, and drive byproducts first with inventory optimization. And that's an important piece of our approach, and this new approach, utilizing this technology to make things simple. And we'll go through a little bit more of that in the demo, but you think about harnessing decisions and allowing for learning to be applied quickly to business results. The reason you cleanse your data is to drive business results. And what we're looking to remove for you is this data management capacity as much as possible, reduce human entry through error, and really create one source of truth or trust across the different disciplines of ops, procurement, and finance, and towards our vision of an intelligent, connected supply chain, where you can harness all of that information from your supply network. So this organization, the multiple systems, hundreds of millions of dollars within a 45-day period, we're able to not only find what could be there, but verify through the use of the Verusen platform, over $20 million worth of verified inventory optimization opportunities, and reset min-max safety stock and reorder points that helps them avoid cost immediately. And that's an important piece. No data cleanse, speed to value, immediately reduce cost, and reduce inventory and avoid cost. And those are, key, as we always talk about, and you may have heard if you've joined us on other sessions, building blocks that we can, that create this foundation that can be added to and that can accelerate the digital transformation that your supply chain is going through. And that's really where we're going. And this company specifically, as we, work with them from a customer success standpoint, we were able to eliminate 40 to 50% of their demand planning team that they had centrally working through this, eliminate that time spent analyzing this data, right? So if you think about what's important, it's understanding the data and removing the manual analysis where I'm pulling things out of the system, reworking them, and then putting them back in. It's very difficult at scale, whether centralized or decentralized, where you're making decisions at every plant, to be able to control that effectively. So that's why many of you experienced, if you've been, whether you've been in the business for a short period of time or many decades, know this is a consistent, for lack of a better term, maintenance issue from a data perspective. So this is only one of many where this blueprint has worked and has really set an accelerated path for the materials management transformation of these organizations.
Yeah. Paul, and for the audience, I'll just piggyback real quickly. We actually did a podcast yesterday with this company, and they're 20 million in 45 days may sound like wow, what were they doing before this situation? But they actually had a team of 5 people dedicated to the MRO space of analyzing data and getting it right. And their main quote, one of the things I pulled out of yesterday's podcast that I heard from them, was that the life balance of analyzing and getting data clean all day long just shifted dramatically from what they were able to add value in their daily job now. So they had a team dedicated to this already, but it just shows you how technology can kind of accelerate and move it forward pretty quickly.
Yeah, and that's I think that's a very important piece, because not only was it dollars verified so that there's demonstrable ROI, with data it's really hard to tie it to a hard dollar ROI, and typically they're separate projects and oftentimes separate teams. And not only were they able to find the dollars, but also thousands of duplicates that were surfaced and not caught by their traditional info steward and data steward technologies they were using to try to remove duplication. So it's not about just finding it, it's about taking action on it. And we'll show a little bit more there. This gives you, this is our kind of standard limited subscription or proof of concept methodology, where we show high value, low effort, low risk or no risk opportunities for you to see your data at work and put a dollar value, so we understand what a project of this magnitude takes across a global enterprise and a global supply chain. So making it very simple to not only identify but execute and show results, not just tell you about results. And we're very committed to that. And that's very in line with, if for those of you, which many of you do, rely on planning these types of projects with Gartner. We mirror that, upper right magic quadrant of a positive supply chain project: high value, low effort, low risk. And then obviously with the pandemic, we've offered optionality for those that need to get started quickly under tough environments, and a no risk option that we can prove our worth, which has been helpful to go along. So the low effort part of this is really important. As Jeff spoke about here, we we're on a call with one of our early customers that has been using the product for over a year, and seeing results like we've shared. And it was great to hear one of the advantages with not only the automation, the removal of analysis to be able to make decisions and not have to distrust the data, but most importantly, being able to do have us roll out and support remotely, and that less than an hour a week of their people's time, and they're decentralized. So this is across the plants. So very low effort, low resource as well, which is atypical. So
Yeah, I'll kind of chime in here a little bit of just my, like I said, previous 4 or 5 years in an MDM environment, knowing the challenge of just project implementations, 6 to 18 months, across that industry, and all the the hurdles you have to get through in those implementations. The dramatic impact that I've seen in how AI can be applied when it's purpose built like this is exactly what you see on the screen here, which is what every one of our customers goes through: a 90-day POC. They literally prove a business case in the first 45 days of those savings that were verified. You saw some of the numbers previous slide. And by the way, happy to have you speak. They're happy to speak to this project and their experience. If you'd like, just let us know, and you can speak directly with them about their approach and their innovation center and how they got through their project and justified it, et cetera. So it's always nice to hear. It's always nice to say that things can be done quickly, but we are. As one of the things that Paul mentioned, a no risk option in the times we're in is a great way to take advantage of innovation to see how it can apply and help companies save in this time very quickly. So that's really what we're trying to convey here as well, the speed at which we can do it.
Yep. I want to walk you through a little bit of the roadmap that we're talking about, and we touched on the vision of the company as this intelligent, connected supply chain, harmonizing data across systems, and enhancing current architecture and moving to new architectures and other adjacent technologies is important, right? So as we look at what you should expect and how to accelerate a materials management or just a digital transformation in general, what we explained a little bit about our kind of initial approach, speed to value, limited subscription proof of concept. We see these waves of value, again, these building blocks that allow you to continue to streamline your operations and trust your operations, not only inventory, but procurement, and really, align incentives that have been traditionally difficult to execute. So as we talk wave one, it's all about cost reduction and cost avoidance, finding the low-hanging fruit with no data cleanse, looking at multiple dirty data sets to find synergies that drive value from an inventory optimization perspective. And there's a reason we start with inventory versus categorization of procurement, which is typically the path. Clean, categorize, and then see what happens. And that is because we feel it's the lowest hanging fruit. You're immediately able to see speed in resetting values that are presented to you, and we'll show you in the demo here shortly. But most importantly, as we looked at this problem and had conversations with hundreds of executives and all the leading system providers, and really what we saw is, the biggest challenge is this execution of what is actually inventoried, which is why you want to buy better, is because you're buying what you need. So how can you buy better if you don't know what you need? So that is really our thought process on it, and can really fuel that adjacency of value. So as we look at it, we go through what we've talked about. This is understand, don't clean, but understand the data, drive initial and significant results that typically pay for our service for, if not only the first year, several years, and also then verify the needs of every plant or every facility. And we look at the whole picture. That's one important point that you may have captured, but I want to touch on is we look at all the data. So if you have 50 plants, 100 plants, 200 facilities, we're going to look at all of that data and its relation to the impact, but then have each individual location verify what we're showing. And you'll see more of what that means in the demonstration, but that's important so that, again, trust is built in the determination, and this human element is we're overcoming that human element issue of, don't tell me what to do. I need this because it makes me, feel right to have these parts in my storeroom or whatever the situation. I think everyone has a story like that. So once we have that, we move into these waves of value. And this is really where things, as we grow as an organization, this is following both not only your journey, but our journey as an organization and additional technology and features we're building. So what you should expect is then a network, right? A virtual network. Many organizations do physical central stores or central hubs, which we certainly can support. But most importantly, what does the enterprise need, and how can we continually be looking at data and its relation to those byproducts and drop in a virtual hub and spoke model that balances that and gives visibility and the ability to execute upon that, both inventorying and procuring those items at obviously the least amount of working capital possible. And moving into wave 3, as we're doing this, all of these decisions are being harnessed, right? That's the importance of using AI, not AI to be flashy, but AI to have a purpose-built deep learning mechanism across data and the byproducts of that data. So what this is essentially doing is optimizing what your demand signals are. And as we talk intelligent connected supply chain, the importance of those demand signals are crucial to be able to be safe and trustworthy of your service levels and Sigma levels and uptime, which is one of the core problems that we see in materials management, while being able to communicate more effectively in trading those demand signals with your key suppliers. So we're already working with strategic suppliers of our customers and aligning, hey, this is what I need, and more easily share that across systems and understand. And at the same time, remove data management, where we can essentially, the thought is trading demand signals for cleaner data from your suppliers or the web, and create more of a self-cleansing system so that this is not a 3 to 5 year cycle, an investment of maintenance that costs you tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars during that cycle. Ultimately, working to where this is an intelligent connected supply chain. If you're an organization that's made up, a CPG organization with several brands, or an organization that is part of a conglomerate, that long-term our vision is to be able to optimize for individual brands and business units, but then create one source of truth across the organization. And we have a very clear and decisive path that we're on to achieve that. And it's really exciting to see the results and the movement through these waves with our customers.
Yep. You want to touch quickly just on a little bit further on the vision there?
Yeah, sure. And lastly, this is all relative to things that you are all looking at, or your leadership's looking at across Industry 4.0. What we're positioning ourselves are is understanding the materials so well that we know and can help support accelerating your path to Industry 4.0. So not just buying and inventorying better and aligning with your strategic suppliers, but also looking at the opportunity of offloading that as technologies like additive manufacturing, preventative maintenance of assets through IoT. What is the relation to connect those dots, and what, that deep understanding of how materials are used, and historically, as well as in the midst of the environment we're in now, where historical values are not as relevant, the ability to know how you can move without move to these other adjacent Industry 4.0 technologies is part of our long-term vision and plan to support that digital transformation.
We just wanted to share a few of the early adopters, large companies that we've been working with, similar to, we recognize some of you in the audience, thought we'd get you a feel there. And again, we're very open, transparent about anyone wanting to speak with the customers here.
Yeah, and as we've been building this, an interesting thing is we're always asked by whether it's investors or customers, what verticals are you focused on? And obviously focus is key for a new technology and a new company and approach. But one big thing that we want to touch on is it's really not about what you do. It's the systems and processes that you're running. We have customers, CPG, food and beverage, aggregate manufacturing, petrochemical, oil and gas, energy. Really it matters what systems are you running, what are you an asset intensive business, and there's a big lift that we can provide. So just in case you're wondering, hey, is this for me, right? I'm certain that we can provide value. So we're going to run through this quick view of visual of all. I think it's really important to be able to show some key elements. So this again is real data, anonymized, a customer that ran a legacy instance of SAP for, call it 40 or 50 plants, acquired another instance of SAP and wanted to, create some synergy there. The challenge, as it is with all organizations, is that the instance that they acquired and the systems that they acquired had completely, demonstrably different data sets, completely different stocking strategies, and obviously a different culture in how they managed MRO. And we were able to unify these again by eliminating the data cleanse and getting to business results quickly. So this is a representation of what you would see, opportunities available by individual location, and obviously different permissions and things for leadership and users at those individual levels. But then really diving deep into the things that we're looking at. So within that first 30 days, we are pulling out. So we're not doing a formal integration as you would expect, because we want to create this business case and allow you to see and not overcomplicate things too early. So we're looking at movement history 3 to 5 years, BOM information, PO information, obviously material master catalogs, probably about 20 to 25 different tables optimally that we would pull out of your system of record. And obviously a strong alignment being a part of SAP's early stage portfolio, SAP IO. We've worked very, very closely. I saw Christian, you joined today. Good to connect with you again. Thanks for taking the time. And so really a good understanding of those. Really it's system agnostic, but a lot of SAP customers. So what you see here is a recommendation card. So it takes all of that information. We get it out of your system into our system within a 2-week to 30-day period, really have streamlined that automation of that process. And we take everything you need to know about a part and we present it to you. And what we're doing here, and this is one of the big human element challenges and scalability challenges that we studied very intently and have come up with this, to try to overcome that, is we want to show everything in the system that would lead us to our recommendation that you see. So what you see on the left is what you have, and this is our recommendation. Here's everything why. These are all dynamic lead times calculated, not just pulled from the raw tables. And this intention of this recommendation card is say, here's everything we know. Can you please make a decision? Now, the important aspect here is that only about 10 to 20% of the data lives in the system most cases, because it's often difficult to get in. A lot of the decisions, the elements that go into a decision are made by an expert that just knows this, whether it's maintenance or demand planning, whomever. And so what this is helping to do is, if you agree with the recommendation, great, click agree, hits the neural net, helps support and drive that value. But more importantly, or equally as important, is disagreeing and saying, you didn't know this about this decision or this product or this material or part. So we asked, disagree, tell us why. And so within one to 3 clicks, we're able to take action and again, remove that analysis. So for instance, I don't agree with 15, but I think it's 20. And here's some standard reasons, and then actually some free text where we're using natural language processing to be able to apply that and transfer that knowledge to the system and make the system smarter. And that helps scalability, because at the same time, we are looking at, better plug your laptop in. We're looking at the data, right? So typically it's data, then inventory or procurement, right? So we're looking at both and creating this living, breathing, real-time solution. And as we're looking at the data elements and what we're talking about, duplication, Jeff, if you want to click over there, we're able to then also be presenting to an MDM team or any of the experts on your team that manage this, of what we're seeing in and across single or multiple instances where we think that there's a high confidence. And so we do a lot of training, structuring, and make this where you're, again, removal of analysis, simply presented this to say, can you verify this as a duplicate or not, and tie dollar values to that. And so we're presenting duplicate pairs that in the background are being grouped. And again, the neural net is learning verifications. And again, we want to present all the information that is available to us so you can make a decision. And this presents both possible and verified duplicates as you go. And you're not, our approach is limiting change management as much as possible. So the ultimate goal is getting to a golden record, and every decision is getting you closer to that. And more importantly, the ability for you to get that additional information, not by cleansing, but harnessing the data in your supply network from suppliers, web, and then so on and so forth. But you can see the simplicity. There's obviously a lot of complexity on the back end. There's multiple AI models and then traditional models that are working together to create this experience. And then lastly, one of the key features that came out of user feedback was we're not putting anything into a data lake or a data ocean. These data sets are still remaining independent from each other, but what we're able to do is search across those. So as I search for a specific part that I'm looking for before I order it, I can find it easily. And that's typically what we've seen from user feedback of why new materials are created and duplicates happen, is the fact that I can't find it, so I order more. So there's inventory and procurement outcomes there. And I can see where it's at, if it's verified or not, and be able to first find it, source it from myself, know where to buy it without creating a new material. And then the last is actually creating material, human entry, right? So we're eliminating human entry at all possible, and have a lot of cool features coming out that aren't necessarily, that are already released, that we're releasing bi-weekly, that are building on these things that we're showing here. But with that, that just kind of gives you a taste of how simple things are, and then obviously then driving that execution. So with that, I'll pause. I know we're only a couple minutes left for questions, and we can go from there.
No, thanks, Paul. And this was just meant to be high level, a few screens to kind of show you a little bit about, how data can be structured and managed as part of the process here, and quite honestly, how quickly and easily users can get their hands on actionable data as well. So I will ask for questions. I did get a couple already. So the first one was, what do the first 90 days really look like? How does a pilot really work? I kind of saw the screen there, but maybe Paul, you can describe a little bit more detail.
Yeah. So upon signing, we have obviously the deal structure. We got unlimited records, unlimited users, unlimited facilities. We want the whole picture. We want, to dig in and remove the handcuffs that you have on your data, and start driving value quickly. That first 30 days will be, once we get the data within a 30-day period, you're in an environment like this with your information, and you can begin verifying across facilities and your MDM teams on data and seeing those results. We have that low risk or no risk approach where we can get started quickly, and then once that concept in limited subscription is proven, typically within a 45 to 60-day period, we give it 90 days just for, we know how difficult things can be to move across an enterprise. But what you'll see is a trigger that says, all right, we've found 10x ROI, and in many cases hundreds of percent ROI. We're ready to go, and in most cases that's paying for the first full year or two of subscription.
Another question is, can you help understand at some level a little bit how the AI is actually working or learning on the specific MRO data?
Yeah, so as we said, all of this that we're presenting in the simple UI and UX is it's presenting you with decisions to start making decisions so that we can make predictive recommendations and continually surface and make this living, breathing. So this is all backed by neural net technology. So it's learning from decisions that we train prior. So training your data for and using some macro learnings just because of the millions and millions of parts and data sets that we've trained over the past couple of years. And knowing that when you make that, you're actually creating an audit trail of what happened, what decision was made, and then how does that drive the next outcome that you make that next decision. And that's where the AI is working, yes.
Yeah, we're happy to talk further on how we, train data and how we interpret it with the AI. As we go forward.
Yeah.
Another is, are there any ERPs or systems that we don't work with? Paul,
we have The short answer is we haven't worked with all of them, but we're not limited, right? So certainly, if you're an SAP customer, we have a lot of experience and a lot of resources, and we're well aligned with that team globally. But SAP, Oracle, EAM systems like Maximo, Infor, Dynamics are all customers that we've worked with. So we shouldn't be limited. And then there's even, opportunities that we see down the road and want to explore where you maybe don't have the scale of hundreds of plants. You maybe have a handful, and you're managing them kind of like in a light way. There's opportunities. We'd love to have the discussion to learn more if we could help.
Couple more for those that want to stick around for a couple of questions. There's a couple others, and thank you for that, going over time. How do you help calculate optimal order or production frequencies?
Yeah, so we certainly are using kind of best-in-class methods. We haven't reinvented the wheel in terms of the modeling that we're using, and the life cycle of an MRO part. So we're taking all of those frequencies into account, and also getting more into planned and unplanned maintenance schedules. It's a long answer, so I'll kick the can on it, and if we could go into a more in-depth how the recommendation engine works. But what we're essentially making sure is that we're making a recommendation that creates a baseline that you can verify pretty quickly and easily, that helps drive future recommendations, and that's much of the difference.
All right. So we'll add one last question here. How or does every company benefit from the AI and the data verification as you go, or is it just independent, by each company?
Yeah, so there are aspects where there are anonymized macro learnings to be able to better find duplicates across different data sets, dirty data sets, incomplete data sets. So that ability is one of our superpowers, to be able to utilize those dirty data sets. But all the data is secure. All the learnings are specific to your organization as it pertains to recommendations that are made on your inventory. Now, things that in future looking of how infrequently used parts are recommended, identifying a Siemens motor across several different how a Siemens motor works in different environments are certainly things that we're feeding into the models to make better recommendations that aren't proprietary to any one organization. So yes.
Okay. I'll ask one more because there's several. Last one, I promise. So
I'm coming. I got time.
Is this model available to be used with other discrete demand elements?
So if I'm understanding correctly, can you add different signals and build some different workflows into it? Not in the product itself. We do work with organizations that, each organization has different levels of data. MRO is pretty standard across whatever you do, whatever you buy for the most part. But the models are built to accept different signals, and the applicability is probably more applicable into like direct materials versus MRO. But what we're looking at is the ability to overcome some of the similar challenges for direct materials as well, where we can feed systems that you may be using from a demand planning perspective, or automate things on the direct side that you may not be using a demand planning engine for.
All right. No, thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
And thanks. We'll wrap things up here. Really appreciate everyone's time today, morning and afternoon. We appreciate your time to get educated a little bit more about how AI can help, the data issues you've got. As I said, we're happy to follow up. You will be getting a copy of the presentation and the recording for you and your teams. And again, as we said, happy to also introduce you to our customers to see what their experience is like as they go through this. So thank you again very much, and we look forward to future events with you. Take care.
Thank you.